Hi, whoever's out there. Sorry, I am not no professional video maker. I never in my life planned on making videos. I've made about 3 or 4 over the last week and a half trying to express what happened to me. But I'm going to make a little longer one today, going through everything. So people that have lived a life like me, or have felt that they weren't worthy enough, or that they could never be forgiven, that's guilt that you carry. So you ignore doing what you should do, and I'll explain that at the end. My name is Heather. Hold on just a minute. All right. My name is Heather. I'm just a lonely little old lady that is completely alone. I'm completely alone with my beautiful little English bully doggy, Macy Gray. And I'm going to try to get in more detail what's happened to me over the 2 months. That was a miracle. And I don't know how to explain it all because I've never been in church or the Bible. Like a lot of people will give you passages of the Bible or this and that. I've got to be honest, I love listening to them. But when they talk about certain things in the Bible, about your wicks being cut, the oil filled up, I don't know what any of that means. I don't have direction in all of these things. The only thing I do know is what I did and what happened to me. I'm going to start out in my childhood. I was a little girl that had a mother, and I was so young. She married this man, and I had a little brother with him. I was so excited to have a little brother. I was very tiny myself, little thing, little toddler per se, but I remember all of this. Well, she married a man that was a police officer, and I felt so excited that I could say, I was so young, let's just put it this way, I remember things, but I also was so young that I believed that he was my dad, just like he was my brother's dad. And none of my family, my grandparents, my mother, or him told me any, or his family told me any different. I thought I was his daughter just as well as my baby brother was his daughter, because I was still so young as well. Well, those things didn't work out between my mother and this man. So he took my brother, and my mom took me. I was devastated because I loved my brother. But as time went on, and it wasn't very much time, my mom, of course, met other men. And the next thing I knew, she was telling, it was close to Christmas, and she was telling me that she was going to reward me by letting me open my Christmas presents early. And I was so excited because it was during the time where everybody wanted Cabbage Patch dolls. And I was a sneaky little girl, and I got under the tree and opened things up, and I already knew I got Cabbage Patch dolls. I was ornery. And then tried to tape them back up like a little teeny toddler, 3-4-year-old can wrap things back right. She knew I had wrapped all of those gifts up under the tree. I was just so excited to see those things. And I got my head chewed off, but she told me she was going to let me have my Christmas gifts early. I didn't know why she said that, but I was so excited. I was like, really? In a child's mind, I get my gifts early? I can play with them early? And she said yes. And I got to open. I got Cabbage Patch dolls, and I also got this one little doll that I called the Tina Turner doll, because when you put her in the bathtub, her hair wasn't perfect anymore. It stuck straight up like a porcupine. So she was my Tina Turner doll. But anyway, backtrack. My mom had gotten to meet other men during this time. She told me that because she was going to count on me to be a big girl, I was about 4 years old. And my memory is crystal clear on this day. It was a day that stuck in my mind and in my heart forever. Because the intense abandonment feeling that happened afterwards, and the setup to thinking that I was not worthy and there was something so wrong with me. That neither did a father want me, but neither did my mom. Because when she left the police officer that had my father, because I wasn't his real child, which I thought I was. In my little mind, I thought I was. But in reality, I wasn't. And he took my brother, and he wanted nothing to do with me. And that was very hard for a little 4-year-old to understand. Why does your dad want your brother but don't want you? And then very shortly later, not very long, maybe a month, maybe 2, that's when I was told I could open those Christmas gifts after she had met another man. And then she told me that she was going to take me to visit my grandmother, her mother. And boy, did I love to go visit my grandma and grandpa. That was one of my most favorite things in the world to do, was to go visit them. So I was excited. I was excited to open my Christmas gifts, and I was excited to be able to go spend time, a few days with my grandma and grandpa. That was the best thing in the world to me, those things. So my mom drove me over there. My grandparents lived way out in the middle of nowhere, and around a bunch of forest, and I mean, we were in the middle of nowhere. Very beautiful and peaceful, but still way far out. So my grandparents weren't there, and I don't know if she planned that or didn't plan it, but they were not there. They were actually at their youngest child. They had 4 children. One was my mother, and had 3 others that were still in the last years of their schooling into growing up. They were almost done growing their children so they could be with just themselves finally after all the years. And here my little 4-year-old self comes. Well, they weren't there. They were at a basketball game watching my youngest uncle, their youngest child, down at the high school, which wasn't too far away from their home. I don't think my mother knew this. I'm not positive she did or didn't, but I don't think so. I don't think she knew where they were, but they weren't home. And so what my mother tells me, as I'm holding my Cabbage Patches and bless me, sorry, excuse me. So what she did was, as I'm holding my Tina Turner doll and my Cabbage Patch that I honorably opened up before Christmas, So excited with those babies. And so excited that I got to go visit Grandma and Grandpa. That was just the best, to be able to have both things. I felt so lucky. So we get there. They're not there. And she puts me in my Grandma and Grandpa parents' garage. And I loved her and trusted her. Of course you do it for. And she says to me, Heather, I need you to be a big girl for the first time in your life. And I need to be able to trust you. Of course, Mom. You know, what? Of course. What? And she said to me, this is the first time that I'm going to leave you alone by yourself. And I need you not to get into anything and just sit here and wait. And she said, Mommy's going to go down to the store. It'll be a little while and then I'll be back. So there again, I felt I had so much pride built up in me that my mom actually trusted me to be alone for the first time and be a big girl, in my childish way of thinking. So I sit in my grandparents' garage for quite some time by myself. Waited and waited and waited. The store was just down the road. And she never came back. But what did happen was, during a halftime or something, because the school wasn't that far away, my grandmother came home to get something, do something. I don't know what it was, but I believe that was the grace of God sending her there, because he knew that this child was alone in this garage with dangerous toys and machinery or tools and machinery, and I could have got hurt in so many different ways. She had no idea I was there, and when she pulled up and seen me there was a cursive note that my mom left with me and said, this is for your grandmother. I didn't put 2 and 2 together in a 4-year-old's mind. But I do remember while I was sitting there by myself waiting, I tried so hard to be nosy, and that's carried with me to today. I'm the most curious, nosy person I just want to learn about everything. But it was a cursive note, and I tried so very hard to sit during that time and read what my mom wrote out. But I had never been in school to learn cursive, so I had no idea what it said, even though I tried. But that was a note to my grandmother. I don't still know all the details, but I'm sure it explained why my mom left me there. Now, my grandmother and my grandfather, like I said, were just getting ready to be, finally, after all the years of raising 4 kids, you know, to be by themselves and enjoy themselves as a couple. And here this little girl comes along. They did not have to keep me or the stress of it. They could have called Children's Services and turned me over to foster care or to be adopted. But they did not. They latched onto that responsibility and loved me the best way that they knew they could. Got custody of me. I was still so depressed because all I wanted was my mom. And I was still devastated that my brother's father, that I thought was mine, wanted him but not me. So here I was, so sad because I had lost both parents. Both parents didn't want me. And in a little girl's mind that small, you just beat yourself up, thinking how unworthy you are and what's wrong with you and why aren't you enough for your parents. But by the grace of God, he gave me to grandparents that loved me so much. They didn't hardly have any money. They were, hard workers, but poor. And that didn't matter. They took me in and did what they had to do with me. And they loved me dearly. Through those years, I struggled. I threw fits. I had problems from trauma, so I would throw uncontrollable fits. And it was just, I believe, a way a child to express and get out all of her feelings and anger that a child can't process. And that was the only way I knew how to get it out. So it wasn't easy for my grandparents dealing with me and my emotions, but they still stuck it through. When I started school, they lived in the country, so I went to a country school. Back then, almost every child had both mothers and fathers. It wasn't like today. And I was kind of an outcast because word had spread. They knew that I was with my grandparents and that my parents had abandoned me. And kids can be cruel. I don't blame them. They're just little kids learning bad things from maybe parents or TV. But they would say to me, your mommy and daddy don't love you. That's why your grandparents have you. And, so it put more hurt in my heart and more of me feeling like I was unworthy. So I was never fully accepted in school as one of the kids that everybody clung to. I was kind of a loner. And then finally, by the age of 13 or 14, when my mom was on about her 5th or 6th marriage, she had built a new home. She was a very highly skilled nurse and had everything going great for her as far as work, finances, home. And she had had another child also in the midst of this, my youngest brother. And she agreed to allow me to come home with her. My grandparents didn't want me to. Well, let me back up. Before this even happened, my favorite thing in the world was to go up and walk up the hill and that was my chore, get the mail every day for my grandparents. And I loved doing it. I felt like I was important that they let me go all the way at the top of the hill by myself and grab the mail and bring it to them. And after my stepfather not wanting nothing to do with me, my mother not wanting nothing to do with me, I get a letter in the mail from this man saying, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm your real father." I was by myself at home when I opened that. I had never been told about him by anybody. They kept it a secret. He told me that he was in prison. I'd never been around people that had been in prison or done bad things. But he told me he was my real father, and he told me the story about him and my mother, and that he's always wanted to see me, but everybody kept him from me. So I told my grandmother about this after crying and crying and crying. Why did nobody tell me these things? And she finally agreed to allow me to go to the prison to visit with him and see him, which was a shock for somebody like me to go to someplace like that at that age. But I was still excited to see who my real father was, what he looked like, what he acted like. He was a part of me, just like my mother was. And he was a very charming, very handsome man. And he was very charming because he'd always been a con artist. That hence why he was in jail. And he was also a womanizer because of his extremely good looks. Kind of the same with my mom. Absolutely gorgeous woman. Used her looks and went through marriage after marriage. 6 to 7 marriages I know of. Could be more, could be one less. I don't know, somewhere around there. My father got out. He married somebody while he was in prison. And I know now that was for a good look to get out on parole. But he married her. And I started going and visiting her, him, and her 2 daughters. And I shortly realized my father was a woman abuser. He beat women. Very controlling. Very conniving. Very manipulative. And I shunned him. And I didn't want no part of somebody like that. So I cut him completely out of my life. And just was back with my grandma and grandpa. From then on, that's when I went, like I said, when I was about 13, my mother offered me to come up and be with her when she had that new home, her career, and another new man, and my new baby brother. And I was excited. So I left my grandparents, went up there, and it was okay for a little while. But it was all bad. My mom didn't care whether I were in the streets. She just wanted me out of her hair all the time. Matter of fact, at one time, they had gotten into such a huge physical fight that my mom left, got an apartment for about a month and a half, 2 months, for me and my baby brother and her during their fight. He talked her into coming back home. She took my baby brother while I was at school. I come home to an empty apartment and she had left me. She didn't tell me anything about it. She just left me again. I didn't even know where I was at that age. I didn't drive. I didn't have any money. I didn't know what to do. So I got a hold of my grandma, and she drove all the way up there to grab me again. So I finished my time out with my beautiful grandparents, but still dealing with so many emotional baggage. And my thought was, when I'm done with school here, and I graduated early, I graduated at 16. It was a struggle. I was dumb in school, but I got through it early. My main mission was to find a husband and have my own family. So I met a man. He was about 10 to 12 years older than me. I was 17 years old. Married him. Started having children right away. I got pregnant a couple months after I got married with my first child, my daughter. And then about a year and a half later with my second child, my son. In the midst of this, I was also putting myself through nursing school. I thought that if I would become a nurse, not only could I take care of my family, but maybe because my mom was a nurse, I was still trying to make her proud. During the whole time, after I married my husband, I realized I married somebody that was also extremely physically and mentally abusive. Very narcissistic, a true case of a narcissistic personality. A true one. I know that word's thrown around a lot, but he truly was. I could never do anything to please him. So I said, I'm going to get myself up out of here after I graduate nursing school. I cannot let my children grow up in this kind of environment. And with a nursing degree, I can take care of them by myself. The day I got my degree, I packed up my kids in my car with very little. I left him everything. And I headed out, and I never looked back again the rest of my life. However, I depended on my mom again. She was with another man, but a wealthier man this time. And she had many different properties. So she agreed to let me and my 2 children stay in a condo, a beautiful condo, that wasn't far from different nursing facilities and this and that. It was fully furnished. I got a nursing job at a nursing home down the road. It was great. So I thought. But I also was in very early stages of being pregnant with my husband's 3rd child when I left. I was going to have that child. Never had a thought of not having that child. And then my mother, and I don't hate her for it, but because I didn't have to listen. But she just kept saying upon me, what are you and your husband, rabbits? Are you seriously thinking about having this child after leaving him? You've already got 2. I never once in my mind thought about abortion before that day when she put that in my mind. And then she convinced me that it was the best and the proper thing to do with the situation I was in. And instead of listening to what I truly wanted, which was to have my child, I listened and I went through with it. And I've regretted that the rest of my life. So I held on to that trauma and guilt. During that time, I started taking a bunch of opiate pills from doctors. And it really started because I fell down the stairs in that condo. And when I got to the bottom of the steps, I was going to iron nursing uniforms. And I fell and I broke and crushed the whole bottom of my ankle when I got to the bottom of the steps. And broke the long bone in my leg. The long... that connects to your ankle. But I crushed the ankle and then broke the bone in the leg. So I had to have major surgery and pins and all this metal put in me and all of this stuff. So there went my jaw. I couldn't work at my job. I'm alone with these 2 children. Didn't know what to do. How was I going to pay bills? Because now I'm in a wheelchair until I heal. Because you can't walk on it until it heals. So you have to be in a wheelchair or you'll just crush it again. And the opiate pills that they give you for pain, when you do something like that and you break something and then you have to go through surgery to fix it, I realized how wonderful I felt on those. Not only did it take away the pain, but it also made me forget all of the hurt I was going through from getting ready to go through a divorce with my husband, having an abortion with my 3rd child, being alone as a young girl with my 2 little ones, losing my nursing job that would pay the bills because I got hurt getting ready for work. And I just started taking them more than what I was supposed to because I liked that numb feeling. it made me not feel any of that pain and that trauma. And I got addicted to them. I liked the way they made me feel. I felt numb, no pain. But I also didn't understand what would happen to me and the downfall I would have. So once I was healed, I was already addicted to those pills. And then I was trying to go and figure out every which way possible how I could get those pills from different doctors. This was way back in the day before, when doctors would just freely hand them out. So I was always on a mission to make sure I had pain pills. Even if I had to lie and make up things and make up situations why I needed them. Whatever I had to do. And that snowballed into much uglier things. That snowballed into where I became instead of a nurse, I became trafficked. I was trafficked and introduced to extremely harsher drugs that I'd never seen in my life. Cocaine, crack, shooting up cocaine, trying heroin. I never really got addicted to heroin, but I did try it. I would pretty much try anything that was given to me. I didn't care anymore. I would do anything. It got so bad that I was put out on the street and made to do things that were absolutely disgusting. And then more and more I would numb myself with all these drugs because of what I was letting happen to my body as a young girl. My kids went with my ex-husband. Nobody knew where I was. Nobody even tried to come find me to help me. So there again, I felt like nobody cared. I was just lost to the wind. And I got pregnant after a couple years of that. And that pregnancy, I delivered him at home. I delivered him as soon as the ambulance got there. Everybody else ran. I was by myself. But as soon as they got there and put me on the gurney, he came out. So I had my third child. While being in the hospital, I said to myself, you have got to get yourself together. You have been given another child. This child is like you. If you don't do right, he won't have a mother nor father just like you didn't. So I got myself together, off of those streets, off of the drugs, every ounce of drugs. And so for the past 14, 15 years, I've been clean. I got custody of my other two children back, but it was my son was like 13. My littlest one, the one I had, he was a lot younger, baby. And then my daughter was 16, but I still fought for them. Fought and fought and fought because I wanted to know that I always loved them. That I never gave up loving on them, and I would never give up loving on them. And I gained custody. I lived in a beautiful home out in the country. Plenty of bedrooms, plenty of everything I could give for the children to live a good life. And once all three of them were all together with me, they all would gang up and they couldn't stand me. They would call me crazy or just be disrespectful. And anytime I tried to put my foot down, how dare you? It wasn't what I expected it. I thought it would be so glorious and I could show them the true love I had for them, that I would die for them. But they all three ended up hating me. And now they're in their mid-20s. My oldest is in her late 20s, getting ready to be 30. And still to this day, they want nothing to do with me. They think that, well, they would always call me crazy is what they would call me. They never gave me a chance. They never gave me a true blue chance. So my kids, being grown, all left. They all have nothing to do with me. They could care less about me, my life, what I'm going through. I started to develop a lot of serious illnesses. I had to have spinal surgery from a very rare condition. Had to learn how to walk again. But I was never, and I did, by the grace of God, I did walk again. And I was not paralyzed forever. But I was never 100% right. I started to get heart disease, diabetes, severe GERD. I had urinary problems to where I had to wear pull-ups. Couldn't make it to the bathroom. Severe and mental problems as far as anxiety and from the trauma. Just severe, like crippling anxiety and depression. So I was on a bunch of medications for that. I was on a bunch of medications for all of those different health illnesses. And I was put back on opiates just for the fact that even though they knew my past, they didn't care. They felt that it was more important that with all of my body being broke down and all the pain I suffered, it really didn't matter, that I needed to be on something for pain control. And I had been clean all those years. So not only did I have, like I said, 1,000,001 medical pills, mental health pills on top of that, I had these opiates. And I took every bit of them, did everything I was told to do, went through so many surgeries, not just my back. I went through at least probably 6 or 7 surgeries in a matter of a 3-year span on different parts of my body that were breaking down. And that's another reason my kids hated me, because I was always in bed, but I was very sick. I was extremely sick lady. And a mentally depressed lady. And I would try to cry to them and tell them, Mommy doesn't want to be like this. I'm trying. I don't know what to do. I try to get help from the doctors, and I'm doing the best I can. You know, but they just seen me as a failure, as I guess not the kind of mom that they wanted. Even though if they had understood the love I had in my heart for them, I had more love in my heart than probably anybody will ever give them in their life. But they didn't choose to take that. When the different ones left, I felt like I was dying as they walked out that door. I was being abandoned again, but by my own children. Then I had a house fire. The house that I had my children in, out in the country, beautiful home. It was due to a washer malfunction or dryer malfunction. And within 10 minutes, my whole entire home and everything I owned was destroyed. So I had nothing. No family, no home. I did have a car. And I still had my mother, even though she was an hour away. And we always bumped heads. I always stayed respectful to her, no matter what she'd ever done to me. I always stayed loving and respectful to her. Well, I went up and stayed with her after that fire until I could figure out where to go or what to do. So I stayed with her for 6 months. And the whole time, it was like she was so cold and I was such an inconvenience. You could just feel it off of her. She would come home from work and wouldn't even say hello. How are you doing today? She would just go straight upstairs, and I hadn't done anything. I would always try to do anything and everything that she asked of me. But I felt that abandonment again, even though I was there. I got so down and depressed during this time. I said, I can't do this no more, and I took a couple bottles of pills. I wanted it to end. I was done. What was my purpose in life? Only thing I ever wanted was family. Didn't want money, didn't want fame, I just wanted family, and everybody would just abandon me. And I'm not a troublemaker. I'm a very humble, mild person that tries not to cause trouble or ruffle feathers if I'm around somebody. So I never understood why so much anger and hate, or like my presence irritated so many people that was supposed to love me. Well, I continued to I did take those pills, and I know that that was God, because there's no way I would have survived, and they did not even hurt me. The squad was called on me, and I was back home that night. No repercussions from it, nothing, and there's no way. I took enough of serious pills to kill me 10 times over. It did nothing to me. I know that was God. I know now. Well, found a house not too far from my mom, so I moved by myself. Lonely with my dog. And I stayed here for almost a year until my mom called me and told me she had throat cancer. So she needed me. So I packed my stuff up, went back and moved in with her so I could be there for her as a support to get her through her throat cancer, and to go to the hospitals with her when she'd get her radiation treatment and her chemotherapy and all of that. There's no question I wouldn't have done that for anybody. Well, about 2 months ago, I was still there. She has had a clear bill of health. She's healthy now, praise God. The cancer was killed. She's back at work. She's a nurse practitioner for a prison. For mental health, go figure. And I enjoyed being with her during that time so much. I felt like I finally was able to have some kind of closeness with my mother for the first time in my life while she was sick. And I treasured that. I didn't want to let that go. I wanted to stay with her. That's my abandonment issues, I guess. Not wanting to let go. But also during that time, I had nurses coming in to help me because of my medical conditions. I could barely walk. Needing knee replacements, my body broken down, my heart conditions, diabetes, you name it. I had a bunch of problems. And 2 months ago, I called out to the Lord. What is my purpose on this earth? My life has been nothing but hell and trauma, one trauma after the other. What is my purpose? If there is no purpose for me, please take me. Don't make me live like this for the rest of my life. I have nothing to look forward to every single day. It's like a misery to wake up and know, here's another day. A whole handful of pills, devices to help me walk just from the bed to the bathroom. Happen to wear pull-up diapers at my age because I couldn't make it to the bathroom. Just many things. And I'm here to tell you, I've never been in churches. I've never read the Bible. But I've always believed since I was a kid, I just took it at face value that Jesus Christ was real and died on the cross for our sins. That was the story I was told. I took it as literal and as fact. And that he rose from the grave 3 days later. Beyond that, I didn't know much else. So I called out to him. And he answered. 2 months ago, I got a wave of beautiful love and a strong power of a presence that was undeniably, it was the presence of the Lord. And he kept coming back and forth with me with this beautiful presence. Some days I didn't feel it, and some days I did. It was back around. And when it's back around, I was filled with joy, and I was filled with energy and life. And I'd never felt such love in my life. And I just, in my mind, I automatically knew that that was the Lord. And this kept going on and off for the whole 2 months until about 2 weeks ago. And I was laying in bed and that presence came over me, but more powerful than it had ever done during the whole 2 months. And it shot straight through my head, through my chest, and through my chest and through my belly. And this electrifying, strong electrifying feeling just kept reverberating up and down, getting stronger and stronger and stronger as I would allow it, for about 2.5 hours. And also during that time, I was getting a lot of information that I did not know about the Lord, about who we are, about what this world really is, about what we're supposed to do. Just so many different things were just automatically, information was automatically given to me. Somebody that had never read the Bible. And that lasted until I got fearful. I finally, after about 2.5 hours, started to get fearful and have weird thoughts in my head. Like, maybe this isn't God, maybe it's something that, and then as soon as I did that, that energy pulled completely away due to my fear. But the miraculous thing that happened was the very next day, I could get up, I could move around. I've never had to wear a pull-up again. I can go to the bathroom fine. I've not had to be on medications, especially the opiates that my body got used to. Never had to withdraw one. No diabetic medication, no heart medication, no acid reflux medication for severe acid reflux for over 20 some years. I've never had to take any of that stuff again. I tried to tell my mom, Jesus has come to me. He has touched me, healed me. He's done something to me. And he is real as real can get. Well, she thinks that I've lost my mind and I'm crazy. And I don't know how that can be, why I would make something so serious up. Plus, I'm the proof. She can see me with her own eyes that I'm not bedbound, that I'm not wearing pull-ups, that I'm not having to take medications. That alone should be proof enough that I don't need a nurse. But she thinks I'm crazy, and she told me I needed to leave. It made her nervous, and she didn't want me there anymore. So I'm back at my home by myself with my dog again. I don't feel that spirit around me no more ever since I pulled back. But I don't know, because I don't know anybody around me that's been through these things. I know that it's inside of me because I felt it inside of me, in my head, in my heart, and down in my belly. But not that electrifying